Now that's original.
Hello Acorns, and welcome back to Original Thursday. The song that you're about to hear or the song that you just heard, I haven't decided really how I'm going to sequence this video, is an original song that I made up back when I was a teenager called Down the Escalante. But before we talk about that, the first order of business is I want to wish a happy birthday to Miss Betty Kuby, who is 97 years young today. Today is her birthday, so happy birthday to her. She's one of our most faithful acorns. As the kids would say, she watches on the daily, which really just is another way of saying she watches daily. But we really appreciate her, and I appreciate her daughter Betty. Her daughter Kay. Betty is the mother. I appreciate Kay, her daughter, letting me know that today is Betty's birthday so that I could wish her a happy birthday. So she is all the way up there in Manitoba, Canada. She was born in 1929. Wow. So I guess that would make her about 5 years old in 1934. And I bet back in 1934 she never thought about 2026. But happy birthday, Miss Kuby. We appreciate you watching. We're glad you enjoyed the channel. So I wanted to say that right off the bat. Second order of business is how cool is this shirt that I'm wearing. I'm going to step over a little bit closer where you can get a better look at it maybe. I know this is kind of dark here. But a great friend of mine gifted me this t-shirt. I don't know where he got it. I don't know if this is something you can buy online, but I've been saving it up kind of for a special occasion to wear it. Of course, you know who this is. Guitar legend, one of my musical heroes, Mr. Doyle Dykes, also one of the nicest people God ever made, one of the best, most generous, gracious people you could ever meet. I really like this down here. I'm not sure if you can see it on the camera, but it says El Hombre de Mil Dedos. And this is, I'm going to say this is how Doyle is known in Spain and Latin America. And believe it or not, once upon a time I was going to be a Spanish teacher, so I didn't need anyone to translate this for me. Probably everyone knows what hombre means, which is also the title of my favorite Elmore Leonard story. If you've never seen that Paul Newman movie, it's a great movie. Of course, the book's better. But the man of, de is always of, right? Mil is an old Latin prefix, I guess, or word meaning 1,000 or 1,000, units of thousands. So the man of 1,000 fingers. The man of 1,000 fingers. That's how Doyle is known in Spain and Latin America, places like that. Just wanted to share that shirt with you. Like I said, I've been saving it up for a special occasion. I can definitely see where he would get that moniker or that nickname if you think about the way he uses those fingers down there. Well, he's got that thumb going up there. It's really like 2 instruments or 3 instruments at once. But thank you for the gift of the shirt. It's awesome. I'm gonna wear it. I'm gonna pick out another special occasion, musically connected to wear this. It fits great. It feels great. Like I said, I don't know where he bought it, and I don't know if you can buy it online. You can check and see. Maybe DoyleDykes.com. Although I think right now they're working on their online store. So if you go there and you check their store and it's down, just maybe give it a few weeks and come back. So Down the Escalante, like I said, I wrote it when I was in my teenage years. By the way, if you're wondering where I am, I'm over at what Matt and Tipper, of course, always referred to, and me too, I did too, Miss Cindy's house, which is now kind of my clubhouse because it's right beside my tennis court. And I notice folks, Acorns here on the channel, they like to see a different setting every now and then, and I don't blame them. You don't always want to see me on my couch at home or in front of that piano, what have you. So I thought it'd be neat to come over here and shoot a video. Tipper, on her channel, Celebrating Appalachia, she recently shot a video over here with my good friend Mr. Josh Griggs. So that'll be coming up. Josh has written a book. It's a really cool book. It's just kind of a nostalgic look at growing up there in Copper Hill, Tennessee, East Tennessee. And when that comes out on Tipper's channel, I'll maybe announce it here on the Blind Pig as well. But they shot a video over here because it saved Josh driving a little bit, because he lives, about 45 minutes away, and we kind of met here and they shot here. So I thought, well, hey, I'll shoot some videos here too, maybe. But that's where I am, in case you'd wondered. And if you're wondering about the thumbnail, that is what the older gentleman who built this house, who lived here. This house was built, believe it or not, in 1938, so it stood the test of time. But out back, there's kind of a shed that he called the bunkhouse. And when Miss Cindy, which is was Matt's mother, she passed away in 2023. When she lived here, that was her art studio. And Matt and Tipper did a video where they went in there. They hadn't opened that door in a couple of years after she'd passed, and they went in there. And if you haven't seen that video, I'll link to it in the description down below. And when I watched that video, I thought, man, it would be neat to shoot a video up there in that attic. And I did attempt it. That's why you see, if you saw a thumbnail with a little window in the background and kind of a, you could see the inner roof line, that's where that was. And I should have, if I was going to do that, I should have started right at daylight, because it was about noon when I tried it, and it just within seconds became so hot that my fingers wouldn't even work. but maybe at the end, if it's not absolutely terrible, I'll throw in a couple of the failed attempts, or at least one failed attempt that I tried to film up there in the attic. Before I come back to Down the Escalante, the instrumental, speaking of instrumentals, I want to encourage you to go over to my good friend Daryl Savage, his website. He just posted a really cool instrumental, and it's a cover of an artist I'm not familiar with at all, Carl Miner, and miner like digging in the mines. So I'm going to have to acquaint myself with Carl Miner because it's a really beautiful, haunting instrumental. Daryl plays it like always so clean. His technique, unlike me, he never bobbles the strings. He hits everything so precisely and so pristinely. But I'll put a link in the description below. And Daryl, he's appeared on this channel, and I've collaborated with him once on one of his channels. Phenomenal singer. While you're over there listening to that instrumental of Carl Miner, which is a lot different than this instrumental that I wrote, it's more, I think, kind of peaceful and introspective. When I hear it, at least, it makes me just kind of start to reflect just on life and things like that. But in addition to that, while you're over there, he has two channels. Daryl has two channels. I believe it's on the flat picking NM, which stands for New Mexico. That's where Daryl is located, which is really ironic because just this past Tuesday, I did the video from Caleb Dyke's wedding, and I called it Caleb's Wedding Jam. Well, Caleb's new wife is from New Mexico, and then Caleb's one of his favorite pastors or preachers is based in New Mexico. So it's just funny, all these connections. Here I am collaborating with Daryl, and then here is Caleb meeting his wife from New Mexico here in North Georgia / Western North Carolina. I guess the world is just not as big as we think it is. It's smaller than we think. But go over there, check out the instrumental, and while you're there, I've started to say this 2 or 3 times. Prior to that video, Daryl posted a beautiful gospel song that he wrote. I should have looked up the title. I think it's something along the lines of I Need You, and it's a beautiful song. I even asked him permission, and hopefully, Lord willing, one day here on the Blind Pig channel for Original Thursdays, I haven't talked to Jamie Shook about this, but we may attempt to duet because it has a beautiful melody lead line. It also has a beautiful harmony line. But check out both of those while you're over there. I know you won't be disappointed. All right. So the question that I posed in the title here, can I still play Down the Escalante? The short answer is no. If you watch me trying to play it now, it's nowhere as good as I played it back in 2009. And it was on this little album that Pap and I put out called Lamplighting Time. It was kind of an odd man out because everything else on this album is really Appalachian in nature, and Down the Escalante is very southwestern flavor. It really stands out. It doesn't seem to belong on this album, but I wanted to release it. I wanted to get it out there, so I put it on there. I remember at the time I was working at Ranger School, and my secretary, my counselor had a copy of the album, and he liked to listen to it, and then he got the secretary listening to it. And I remember she asked me, and Down the Escalante is track number 9 on here, and I remember she asked me one day, I was walking by her desk, she said, and who played that one song, that number 9 song? And I said, well, I did. She said, And it was funny because I don't think she believed me. And not that it was that impressive, but it was just sort of that different from everything else. I don't think she really thought that was me. By the way, I'm out of those. You can, for a long time, you could buy these in the Blind Pig Etsy store. And Lord willing, I need to order some more of them. I don't even have a single one. That's why I brought this little picture in the frame. The folks that made those CDs for me, I really need to dust this thing. they had a little policy there when you sold a certain number of CDs. I can't remember if it was 350 or 500 or something, which was nice of them. They would frame a little thing and send it to you in the mail, and I keep that in my little studio. And I just wanted to have a visual aid, and like I say, I don't have any of the CDs, but hopefully we'll get those back in the Etsy store. And then if you want to have a physical kind of old school copy of it and other songs, I'll make an announcement here on the channel that it's back in the Etsy store. But the rest of the songs, it's mostly not gospel, which is very unusual for me and Pap. There is one at least, or maybe a couple of gospel songs on there, but it's mostly kind of just Appalachia ballad type stuff. I'm jumping around here. I have my notes written down. It's funny because the other day on Tipper's channel, Matt said he had never seen anybody take notes on napkins or write down things on napkins until he met Pap, my dad, and then of course Tipper, who he wound up marrying. But I do the same thing. I write notes on napkins. You can see I even have a note on the back that I left over here for one of my buddies. I'm jumping around. I had everything kind of organized, but I'm very much jumping around. Okay, so like I said, I wrote this when I was a teenager. I was probably around 16, and it just kind of came to me out of nowhere. My favorite chord, or at least my favorite key or chord on the guitar that's a minor, has always been D minor. I just love the sound of it. I like A minor and E minor too, for that matter. But I've just always loved that D minor. So I was in my room one day just messing around with D minor, and back then I did a lot of cross picking, and kind of the first thing that I knew, I was doing that opening roll that goes up to B flat, back to D minor, and then to kind of a diminished chord that I don't even know what it would be per se. If I figure that out, I'll put it at the bottom of the screen. I just started doing that, and then the next part, just kind of in the middle of the neck, that too just kind of came out of nowhere, and it's very unusual. It goes from, I want to say, D minor to G major, and then F major, and then back to D minor. It's a very bizarre kind of collection of chords, and I just started to kind of piece it together. And it's funny because I think I counted the other day that it has 6 different parts in it. You know, most songs have a verse and a chorus and maybe a bridge, 3 parts. This has 6 different parts, maybe 7 depending on how you count it. I didn't plan it to be that way. It just kind of wound up that way. And I remember when I made the recording, I played that recording for my Uncle Henry, who was a great guitar player, and we were sitting in his yard listening in my vehicle, and I remember his comment was, and if you knew Uncle Henry, it was almost impossible to impress him. He was very self-critical, but he would also point out any shortcomings in anything that you were working on or that you had done or created. And he wasn't trying to be mean. It's just kind of the way, it was just his personality. But anyway, I remember when it finished, he said, I said, what do you think? And he said, that's really good, but there's one big problem. And I said, what's that? And he said, well, no one would be able to follow that. And I knew immediately what he meant, because it's almost unpredictable. I disagree. I mean, people could follow it, but they would really have to either have tablature or sheet music in front of them, or they would just have to memorize what part is coming next. And it might have even been more kind of asymmetrical or unpredictable when I played it for him. I might have gone back and brought back that initial B part in the middle of the song, so that there was at least a revisiting of one of the parts, and it wasn't just 6 parts in a row that never went back or kind of established a not exactly a chorus, but a repetition. Anyway, so I wrote it, and I really wrote it about nothing, because like I said, it just kind of came out of nowhere, and I didn't know what to call it. And then one day I was waiting in the barber shop. Mr. James Hogan, who ironically, it just hit me, lived right there, just above this house at the top of this ridge over here. I wasn't even thinking about it when I shot this video, but he lived right over there. He cut my hair for decades and decades. He was a little bit younger than Pap. He has since passed away, but his barbershop was down in the basement of a very old building in Murphy, just right off of the square there. And he always kept a lot of magazines in there. He kept National Geographic. And so while I was waiting to get my hair cut one day, now I wasn't 16, I was older. I was probably in my 20s. And I was flipping through, and there was this really nice article in there about the Escalante River that runs through Utah. And there's a park there. It's a massive park. If I'm remembering correctly, if you were looking at a map of Utah, say that Utah is like that big on the map, you could, if you set a dime on that, that would almost be the size of the park, or at least one of the parks that, it may be more than one park, but it's all government land, I guess you'd say, that the Escalante River runs through. And there were so many beautiful pictures, and to me it looked a lot like the Grand Canyon. And a lot of times when you're watching movies or television and they're supposedly set in Arizona or the Grand Canyon, you're really seeing Utah because it's cheaper to film there than in Arizona. But not only was the river beautiful and all the rock formations and the mesas and things like that, but there would be little sprinklings in there of green vegetation, even though it was a barren desert. I remember there were trees that looked almost like money trees. They had little disc-like flowers or leaves on them. And then there was also a lot of cave art from ancient people, maybe Native Americans, there along that river. So I just was so drawn into that, and I thought, I'll name that instrumental that I've never named. I'll name it after that. And so I called it Down the Escalante, because as you flip through the article, you almost had the feeling like you were going down that river, which for the most part I think is a very slow, winding river. And you're around every bend is something new, beautiful that you kind of discover. And I hadn't thought about it until now, but that would also kind of go along with the being 6 different parts, that there's always something new kind of around the turn, oh, here's this little eddy in the river, or here's this vegetation, or here's this cave art, or whatever, So that's how it wound up being called that. I recorded that in 2009, like I said, on that CD, and I'll give a little shout out to one of my mentors, Mr. Arnold Matthews. He was the principal of Martins Creek School around that time, and I was working on my master's to become an administrator. And one day we were standing around there in the school, and he handed me a little blue disc about this big, and you may have seen these, and on the disc it said T-U-I-T, kind of like that. I don't know if you can see that. And I said, what's that? It was almost like a little poker chip. And of course it was round. He said, that's a round to it. He had kind of a dry sense of humor. And apparently he had ordered like a little bag of these, and he was going around giving them to people as a way of encouraging people to get things done, because it's so easy to say, well, I'm going to do that one day when I get around to it. Well, I couldn't say that anymore because he just gave me around to it. So I was going to have to, anything that I had been putting off at the time, I was going to have to pursue it. Kind of makes me think of, Granny shared this with me, that when she was taking care of Steve when he was a little bitty boy, and he would want her to do something like play with him, maybe go out in the yard and play with him, or make him a sandwich, or fix something for him that he wanted done. She would say, well, I'm going to do that, Steve, when I get time. And he would say, here's you some. like he could give her some time, which was very cute. But that was just kind of his understanding. You know, time, you can't see time. So to his little mind, it probably seemed like an imaginary thing anyway. So here you go, Mama. Here's you some time. Now you can do it. So Arnold handed me that round to it. And right about that time, too, one of my students, Charlie Farver, he was a great student. She had been in dance since she was a little bitty. And I guess this would have been when she was in about the 8th grade. And every year, there was the Murphy School of Dance, which has been very active here for, gosh, maybe the past 20 or 30 years. And every year they do a big dance recital. And Charlie had a lot of performances in that dance recital. So she really wanted me to come and watch her dance recital. And, you know, that's not exactly my cup of tea. So I kind of considered not going. And then I got to thinking, well, wait a minute now. I go watch all these ball games and things that that kids play in, and they want me to come watch them. And I thought, you know, Charlie, she's not an athlete. This is Charlie's thing, so I should go. And I was so glad I did, because I enjoyed all the performances, and it was kids from little bitty on up to, you know, like high school seniors. And somewhere in the middle of that, there was a girl, high school girl, and I remember she danced to, it was the first time I'd ever heard this song. It's a beautiful song. It's a Jackson Browne song. What is the name of it? These Days. And it wasn't Jackson Browne singing it. It was this lady, I'll look her up and put her name at the bottom of the screen. She was like a French singer, maybe back in the 70s. She had a very unusual voice and very unusual way of phrasing her words. And that's what was playing while this young lady, you know, was dancing. And I don't know if she came up with her own choreography. I'm sure the dance teacher down there, what was her name? Janice Owl, very talented lady. I'm sure she helped with the choreography. But I was watching that dance, and that song is so beautiful. I was hearing it for the first time. I was thinking about my round to it that Arnold gave me, and I thought, you know, these folks, they've worked every day. Probably they've practiced on these dances. Here they are performing it, expressing themselves. Time is getting by. I should quit putting off making recordings. I should make a recording. And so that's how this recording came about. That inspired me to kind of get off of my rear and to make this recording. And I'm so glad I did, because now I have it, and of course Pap's on it. And I decided to put Down the Escalante on there. That's probably a lot more than you ever wanted to know. I'm going to tell you 2 more things about the song, and then I'll kind of wrap up this video. When we first started, when I say we, really Tipper started the Blind Pig and the Acorn YouTube channel, and when she first started it, one of our most faithful commenters and viewers, his little handle was Mandolin1944. And I need to go visit his channel and see if he's still active. I assumed that 1944 was his birth year. Now, it could have just been the year of his mandolin. Mandolin 1944, he was one of the most interested listeners in terms of Down the Escalante back in the day when I uploaded it as just a YouTube video. I did it almost like a slideshow with different pictures from the Escalante River. And if you look back at them now, they're kind of grainy. They're like 480 DP or whatever you call that. You know, now like the minimum of everything is 720. But Mandolin 1944, he was very interested in what instruments were used in that recording. And so I'll tell you about those right now. I told him back then, but I'll tell you now. The main guitar was a very cheap Japanese classical guitar that Wade Powell II gave me. I found it in a shed by his house, and the bridge had pulled off, and there was a family of rats living in it. That was the main lead guitar, and it was very difficult to play. And the frets are so high and everything, but somehow, you know, I was a lot younger back then. I guess I was in my late 20s or early 30s, and somehow I managed to play it on that guitar, and it sounds much better than a steel string guitar. When I first attempted the recording, I played it on the Dove, and I probably played it just as well, but it was kind of too ringy and too harsh, so the nylon strings really sounded better. So that's the main instrument. Now the Dove is on there, and the way I played the Dove, I tried to chord along in the same standard D minor position. I tried putting a capo and maybe playing in the A minor position, which was way down the neck, of course. None of that sounded any good at all. And I finally had kind of a brainstorm, and I looked on the internet and found out how to tune the Dove in an open D minor. And so if you just put no hand on the neck at all, and you just hit it, it's just a D minor. And then you could just take your finger and move it in different places on the fret of the guitar, and you could get the different chords. And when you needed it to be a major, for example, like that G major or that B flat chord there, or B, I can't even remember which one it is now, B flat, you would take another finger and kind of put it beside that finger, and then you could pick it up again and it would be a minor. And so the rhythm guitar that you hear is the Dove. I'm not playing it with a pick, I'm playing it with my fingernails like this, and I'm only hitting down licks like this. And so that way it doesn't conflict with all the licks on the catgut and those rolls, because that's all it does. So it doesn't really fight with it. It was difficult. I'm not used to using that part of my finger that much, and so it would start to get really tender. So if you listen closely to the studio recording, which I will share at the end of this, you can hear there's a few places where I didn't get the chord clean, but overall that worked great in support of the nylon string guitar. And then the other instruments all come from a Casio keyboard, which I bought around the year 2000, maybe a little after that, early 2000s. I remember I gave about $300 for it, and I bought it from a musician's friend. It's one of the best purchases I've ever made in my life, because I've used that thing in so many ways, so many times. One of the main ones being I use it for my click track anytime I make a recording. And a click track is something that you lay down that's kind of computerized, so to speak, that cannot vary. It cannot speed up or slow down. And then you wear headphones as you lay down your different parts of the song. And then you don't hear the click track. You throw it away or erase it, or you just turn it down when you're mixing the recording. But it keeps everybody in time. And that Casio has the best click track. Prior to that, I had tried metronomes and different things, and it was just too hard to stay with them. The bass beat and the downbeat, drum beat on the metronomes were never different enough to really hang with for me. And so that's been the best use of that Casio. But it also has a pretty realistic sounding acoustic bass on it. And I've used that in a lot of recordings. So you're just hitting keys like this, playing the bass on there, changing around for the different chords. And I have a regular bass. I can play a regular bass, probably even better than I could play it on that keyboard. But I'm not very good as a recording engineer, and it's very difficult to record a real bass because some frequencies just get so low that they muddy up the mix, and some places maybe are louder than others. But on that keyboard, everything is kind of even, Steven, and balanced out, and so it's much easier from a recording standpoint. The other instrument that you can hear in that studio recording, and that was one of the ones that Mandolin 44 was very interested in, it's kind of an eerie little thing that you hear. That was done on the very high keys of that keyboard. And the Casio, it has, gosh, maybe 100 or so instruments to choose from, and I honestly can't even remember what instrument I chose. I just kind of kept going through them until something sounded good. It might have been an oboe or something like that, but it was way up on the high keys, and there's different effects that you can set on that Casio. There's reverbs and things. I engaged tremolo, however you say that, which gives it kind of that little tremble. And so that's what you hear kind of in that right speaker. And I was so fortunate with finding the particular notes that I played, and at places where the song would kind of stop or pause, that little tremolo would just hang just the right amount of sustain before I played the next note. It could not have worked out better. And there were notes that I played on those high keys that worked so well with everything else that was going on. Sometimes the bass guitar might be climbing while the tremolo was going down, and vice versa, and it just all, I think it was, I really believe it was a God thing that it all worked out that way, that I wrote this song in the first place, that literally came out of nowhere. And back when I wrote it, I was listening almost exclusively to the Louvin Brothers and Reno and Smiley. Do they have any music like that? No, they don't. Not really. Ira, he would get into some strange things on the mandolin sometimes live with instrumentals and things, he and Paul Yandell. But so it just came out of nowhere, and then when I went to make that recording, how everything fell together also was very much a God thing, just like a gift. And that brings me to my one regret about the song. I wish I had named the song something in the gospel realm, something that directly connected to God. But you know what? If you look at the Escalante River and all that beautiful creation that's there, that also points to God. So there's more than you ever could have wanted to know about the original song for this original Thursday, Down the Escalante. I will share the studio recording from 2009 that I just released digitally a few weeks ago. You can hear it on any platform now, Spotify, iTunes, whatever. You can download it. You can listen to it here, of course, on YouTube, anywhere, Amazon Music, whatever. It's out there on all of those. So if you like it, you can go listen to it more. You can download it, and that way you can hear it without all this yapping, all this talking. I will share real quickly that the cover art for that single release, that's a really cool photograph that Wade Powell II took up at his house. If you've wondered what that is, it's a walnut that fell from a tree into kind of a muddy area or mud hole, and it made this cool crater around it. And I just thought the green and the brown and just it all kind of looked weird. And this is a weird song, so it made for great cover art. Thank you so much if you made it through all this, and I'll share the studio recording, the old video that I made way back in the early days of the Blind Pig channel, and then maybe even an attempt that I made up in the attic of the bunkhouse here at what's now my clubhouse. And if you're wondering why did I play the Taylor, it's very difficult for me to play this song now. I'm just not fast enough. I just don't have enough dexterity anymore. I could do better if I played more often, but of all the guitars that I own, the Taylor in general is the easiest to play. And that's not even because it has the lowest action. I have some guitars that have lower strings, but overall the Taylor is the most comfortable, easy playing guitar that I own. So that's why I attempted it on the Taylor, and still couldn't do it really. But if you notice, even in the original recording back then, that roll is so difficult, especially when it goes to that diminished position and you have to pick this finger up and put it back down on that bottom string of the guitar, and you have to have that roll going. That's the most difficult part, probably. If you notice in the original recording, the song starts at one speed, and then when all that stuff is past, you know, when I've made it beyond that, and then we get to more of the strumming action, then the song speeds up, and that was intentional. And so back to that click track, I had to have 2 click track settings in order to pull that off. But I'm even surprised that I had enough sense to do it that way, because if I had played the first part as fast as I could, it wouldn't have been fast enough for the strum part to sound good. If I had made the strum part where I needed it to be, then it would have been too fast to do the rolling, cross-picking part. So the song has 2 speeds, and that made it possible, made it doable. Yeah, there's probably more I could tell you about it, but that's enough. If I do think of anything else to share, I'll put it in the description down below. Look down there for those links to Daryl's channel. Again, happy birthday, Betty Kubi. And so glad that you're a fan and that you watch. And thanks to everybody for watching. Tune in next Tuesday and we'll have an old-timey Tuesday. We'll have an old-timey song for you, Lord willing.